Well, is there an excerpt with her family that you'd like to read? Her aunt and her cousin, is there some sort of camaraderie built up when it comes to them?
Yeah, and I mean, I would love to read a part, a scene where she's actually doing a shoot, just so that you guys get an understanding of that. I haven't made, so even when she's having fun, she's still not having fun. Okay, so in this example, she's on a jewelry shoot in Kerala. You guys read it when you get there, I'll just skip that part. The water glittered in the morning light, peeking around hundreds of lily pads. Pink lotus flowers stood on their stems. White and yellow lilies floated atop their green leaves, delicate, weightless. Overhead, the mangrove trees leaned in sleepy arches toward the water. Their leaves caressed the water surface like a lazy hand, fingers grazing the liquid. The prayers, the incomprehensible amount of gold, the gentle surroundings, everything about the surreal oasis enchanted her. After a short prayer, handshakes, head wobbles, and happy greetings, Mr. Bullapalli, the client, made a mass introduction to the crew. Lila noticed their stares. She learned from Vikram that no one spoke Hindi. She guessed, like Vikram, her assistant, they too would struggle to understand her brand of English. She realized that communication would remain limited to Vikram. He helped her step into the canoe. Two other fishermen stood inside the water around the vessel for stability while she struggled on board. A soft splash followed a man's head emerging behind the canoe. Lila clutched Vikram's arm, startled by the smiling face. "We're having some trouble stabilizing the canoe in place." Vikram wobbled his head in explanation. "He's a fisherman. He'll be hidden in the water just to hold it in place." Lila nodded. Her concern about the boat capsizing with her and the absurd amount of gold on her body seemed too obvious for her to voice. The canoe sank several inches under her weight, disturbing the surrounding lily pads. "You just need to lie down on the boat," Vikram continued. "We wanted to show the contrast of the bare wood background and the simple surroundings and your elegance." He grinned. "We want to focus on the beauty, show the jewelry." Inside the long hollow vessel, Lila leaned her back against the raised center panels. The photo assistants prepared the shot when the fishermen came out of the water. They used a paddle to rearrange the leaves of the water while the lone submerged fisherman strategically hid himself near the hull. On Vikram's translated directions from the photographer, Lila began her poses. She stretched her arms, curved her back, tilted her chin. At intervals, the photographer offered further directions that Vikram called out to her. During a break, an assistant approached her with a water bottle. "Is everything okay? Are you too warm? Anything you need?" Vikram called. Lila declined, not wanting to disrupt the flow of the shoot. By late morning, the bugs and flying insects arrived at the scene. Lila resisted the urge to flick at the buzzing near her head. Mr. Pullapalli noticed and ordered an assistant to fan away any further intruders. Lila brushed a wisp of hair out of her eyes, surprised by the extraordinary attention showered on her. They continued for an hour before the heat showed signs of melting her makeup. Vikram offered her a juice while a stylist powdered her face. The assistant stopped fanning her only when the photographer was shooting. The photographer called out in English words she understood despite Vikram's continued translations. "Excellent, great, perfect." Lila felt like a celebrity amidst the extraordinary graciousness from the client and crew. What a great assignment. Eva finally came through. Maybe I'll get more projects like this. She raised her arm behind her. The bangles chimed with her movement. She closed her eyes and turned her head sideways. Her other arm splayed next to her. When she lifted her eyelids, her gaze leveled with a toad sitting on the edge of the canoe, inches from her face. Two long seconds into the wide-eyed staring contest, the toad's throat inflated, round and bulbous. It seemed incensed with her presence in his water. With a loud, bloated croak, it jumped over her and onto the other side. A drop of water landed on her neck. Lila screamed, jolting upright. She leapt out of the boat in a swift motion and onto the beach with her hands covering her mouth. The canoe promptly flipped over behind her. The flustered fisherman stood helpless behind the capsized boat. Her sari puffed out in disarray, the folds distorted. Her clip-on nose ring dangled next to her cheek from the connected ear cuff. She dropped her hands to her sides and turned to Mr. Pullapalli. "I'm so sorry, it just startled me." She shook her head, the nose ring swung gently. "I didn't mean..." Lila knew this would cause a delay in the shoot. They now had to dry out the canoe, which might affect the entire day's schedule, thereby increasing the budget. "The necklace!" Vikram gasped next to her. "In the water!" Lila touched her neck. The chill down her spine confirmed the missing jewelry. Mr. Pullapalli shouted orders to the crew. The slew of fishermen jumped in the water, diving blindly in the greenish water. Lila's brow furrowed. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "It was an accident." Vikram stood still, wide-eyed and open-mouthed, his skinny frame diminished next to his large, rotund mass of his angry, anxious uncle, but quiet. Lila held her breath at long intervals, wishing desperately for someone to come up for air with the shining gold chain. Shit. I'm so screwed. She imagined her termination at Xfinity after this assignment. Goodbye, India.
So, probably vaguely on the lines of what transpired in that little account. In India, mostly when we talk about models, a lot of times we have people with opinions talking about not all, we have actors who can translate into models, who can pass off as models, but models who do not necessarily qualify as actors. What do you have to say on that kind of thinking?
So I think that happens everywhere. I mean, you look at Hollywood and there's Transformers, and I think beautiful women are lovely to look at. So if they have an opportunity to be in front of the camera, whether they can act or not, I don't think, I think the audience decides.
Absolutely. And getting on a bit to your personal choices, what are the books that you like reading? I mean, being a fashion, I don't know if you write for fashion per se, but is there anything that you're inclined towards when it comes to reading?
Yeah, absolutely. I read Marian Keyes pretty religiously, actually. She writes very, very serious issues about addiction and depression and just very serious issues that affect people's lives, but she writes it with such humor. I don't even know where they put the books in the bookstores, because is it humor or is it literary fiction? What is it? But she deals with very, very serious issues, but I find myself, so I just keep rereading her books to try to mimic her style a bit.
All right, and my last question to you about you're already onto your second book. Mm-hmm. If you can tell us a little more about it, and again, the thoughts behind what you wanted to go into your second book.
Sure. So when I first started writing this book, it turned into this very long, never-ending story. And at some point, probably 2 years into the process, I had the epiphany that this is 2 books. So in fact, it's a sequel to this one. This first one's called Delhi Stopover. The second one's going to be called Crashing Beat Town, which takes this character to Mumbai and completes her story. So without giving away the ending, I'll tell you that a second book is coming and she's in it.
Lots more in store.
There's lots more punishment in store.
And we have Mumbai in it, so